Hello, I'm Denise Scaloni. Welcome to today's episode of Empowering You. My guest is Angela L. Todd. She's a historian and a legacy builder. She has done some amazing things and worked on some amazing projects. She's going to share with you how to build your legacy, what you need, and some tips on how to get started. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
It's gonna be better. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be better, yeah. It's gonna be great. I can't wait. It's gonna be great.
My guest today is Angela L. Todd. She's a historian and a legacy builder. She has degrees in women's studies, English, a master's degree in literature and cultural theory, and a PhD in cultural studies. So she has a very interesting job that she loves, which is her passion. And I can't wait for you to meet her and hear all about it. Thank you for being here, Angela.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited
I
to
am
connect with
too.
you again. You know, we were in some groups together and I moved away. And so I'm so excited to be in touch again.
Yeah, it's been a long time, long time. And I remember when I first met you and I thought, what you do is pretty cool. So, but I want to ask you. So, when you sent me your press kit, there was something that really stuck out, and I wanted to read it while we were
Oh,
recording
okay.
here. Okay. You have, I've always been that girl, the one talking to little old ladies in the grocery store, the one reading a parade of women's biographies, autobiographies, and history, the one asking my kid where the women are and where they are going to live on that Lego spaceship. I'm always looking for where the women are and what their stories are. And that just really struck me. So is that how it all got started? What you do?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I worked at Carnegie Mellon at the Hunt Institute for Botanical Documentation, which is an amazing facility and it has an amazing archive. If you get a chance to go to one of their art shows, they're really the premier place in the country for botanical art.
Wow.
So
Okay.
they're also a repository of alternate resort, which means if, say, Ron Stuckey got hired to teach and do research on water plants at the University of Ohio, which he did, when he got interested in history and his mentor and doing a biography and looking at beech trees, the university has it scripted what they plan to keep. And they said, oh, no, that doesn't fit in our plan. So they would come to the Hunt Institute and say, I have this great project. And we always said yes. This is the history that we don't want to lose, right?
Right, right.
Excuse me. So over those 18 years, Ron came, Roger came, Alan came, Hugh came. I think you probably see the pattern by now. In 18 years, one woman came. And I thought, oh, well, it's so much dawned on me. First of all, the stuff that might get lost from history if that university didn't want it or that historical society. So that's one. And the other is who feels empowered to bring their life story or their work or whatever to a place to save. So that got me out on the road doing my own thing. And I'm excited about it. I really try to concentrate on people that are kind of in the footnotes of history, as we say, women, historically excluded folks, I guess is what we say these days. So that's people of color, people of alternate sexualities, people who are dispossessed or immigrants or whatever. And I've had some amazing, amazing projects.
And I should also mention too, and I didn't read it when I was introducing you, but you published articles and curated exhibits using biographies, archives, and photographs. And you helped research a missing German Jewish art collection and track down a date for a plant photo whose details would determine whether or not it made the endangered species list in this region. That's pretty cool, Angela.
And that was at the Hunt Institute. Yeah. So it's one of those places where, you don't realize, and I think people don't know a lot about archives, and that's been part of what I do before I even get to the work part, is tell people what you can find there and whatnot. So those little tiny details, like Walter Hodge went on a camping trip, and in one of his slides, there's a picture down there of the moss or whatever it was.
Yeah, sure, right.
And they said, wow, well, we haven't seen it in that area in 30 years. So I guess it's going to go into this category. So it's those little details that we think are vacation pictures aren't worth anything, or they
Mhm.
think that our papers and photos don't have meaning to anyone else. And oftentimes they do. I'd say always, but oftentimes they do.
Yeah. So, what exactly is a legacy builder? Because you use that term.
Right. So, and again, because people I think aren't familiar with what an archive is or how they would belong to one or where their place would be in one, I've um, I've been working with people to make sure that they're remembered for their lives and their work.
Now, Angela, are you talking about like photographs? Is that what you're talking about when you say like archives? Like, what do
All of
you,
it.
all of it?
I
Okay.
think it might be best to tell you about, I think, two or three of the really best projects that I've worked on.
Okay. Because when you say
One,
archives, we're all thinking about different things. Like, I
right.
think of like photos or maybe files or someone else watching, maybe thinking of something. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of places to save your history. And I'll get to that after I tell the
Okay.
three stories.
Great.
The first one is Lottie B. Scott, and somebody referred her to me. She knew she had a lot to save, and she wanted an archivist to come to her house and help her figure it out. She was in Connecticut. She came north from the Carolinas at the end of the Great Migration, and she was a widow, and she had a son, and she was African American. She kept everything. She had a letter that she wrote to the emergency room head at this nearby hospital about the racist experience she had with
Oh,
her baby toddler. And it
wow.
was back in the 60s or 70s. And,
Yeah.
25 years later, maybe 30, she was on the board of that hospital. So she traced everything all the way up. She did start an NAACP chapter.
Hmm.
And her collection ended up, I went to her house. She brought all the little piles out of all the little corners. That's the way we all live. There's no shame in that game. None. We picked a bunch of big categories, arranged them, put them together, boxed them up. I wrote a description of the scope, like how broad, and the content. So, what actually was in there, a description, not item by item. And her collection ended up going to the University of Connecticut because they wanted to increase their holdings on people of color in New England.
Wow. Okay.
Perfect fit. Another great story, an acquaintance of mine reached out when her stepmom died, and they found a storage container full of stuff, family photos, some handwritten things from her mother, some birthday cards and deeds and certificates and on and on. So they had 6,000 family photos, and they did get them digitized at my pleading. They did not throw away the originals, never throw away the originals. And we got everything organized and pulled together. So the woman who passed, her mom wrote a couple pages of autobiography, handwritten 4 pages. But in those 4 pages were what her mother had told her about living in Russia and hiding in the kitchen cabinets during the pogroms. So that kind of thing gives you a real handle on history, to have somebody's personal experience of it. And I think
Yeah.
it's really, really important for us to save that, because it makes history real, and because I do think all people belong in history. So we packaged all that stuff up, and her brother drove it to the YIVO, Jewish Family Research Center in New York City. They were thrilled. They were thrilled to have it. And there was lots of information there about a couple of summer camps that they went to that I couldn't find any history of record on it. So it's missing stories that we don't realize they're missing. But every family has this kind of information really specific to their area, their family, their ethnicity, whatever. And the third one, I sent you a link about this one. Another acquaintance of mine's father passed, and she wanted to do some oral histories to talk about him. And he was a character. I mean, he was a rough fella. He had several different wives. He was always traveling around. He had many, many different jobs. some bordering on legality.
Hmm.
But that was her dad, and they wanted to remember him. He did everything. He made jewelry. He went to Appalachia and recorded songs with the locals and all kinds of stuff. And so the oral history had an ex-wife, the woman's mother, the acquaintance's mother, and the current wife, and my friend. And it was so wonderful and loving. And, we just were focused on remembering this man. So his current wife said, "What am I going to do with all of his stuff?" We got
Right.
through the oral history part, and she was like, "Okay, this was great, and now you're leaving me here." I don't want to say, now you're leaving me here with all this stuff. So he actually was raised by his grandfather. And so we collectively decided that probably that grandfather stuff was the most precious, the oldest, probably dearest to his heart also. And so God bless Charna. She's in Canada. She packaged it all up and sent it to the Historical Society in Bethel Park. So Ira, I can't remember his last name, but he made violins and violin cases. He was a photographer in Bethel Park. So there are these great big long pictures of huge groups that either it's an event or it's a business or whatever. And he also had portrait pictures of, a couple of sisters or this or that. So the photos were amazing, but he did also have deeds for properties in that area. And the Bethel Park Historical Society made a little video about it. I guess they have their own channel on BPTV.
They do, yes.
Yes, so it was exciting for me. My name doesn't show up in anything that I do.
Right,
And that's
right.
okay with me. That's not what I'm here for. But I was thrilled with their joy. They just unboxed everything on camera, and it was very exciting for me. I was still in Pittsburgh at the time. I haven't visited the collection in person, but one day I will.
Yeah. I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah. I think you may even have seen bits of it. I think there are a lot of items out on this permanent display.
Okay.
So from those three stories, one went to a university, one went to an ethnic research center, one went to a historical society. And there are all kinds of options for where things can be saved. And there are private options too. I don't know if you've heard of Forever, which was it started in Pittsburgh. Glenn Meekum is the man that started it. And they can guarantee that and this really appeals to me, that all of your files will be migrated from, if you're my age, then we went through the floppy disk and the zip disk and then the CD and the DVD.
Slides.
Yes. So as the technology changes, they promise to keep your files updated on the latest technology.
Yeah. So, Angela, who should have a legacy? I mean, those are wonderful stories that you told, but they're like, wow, those are really important people and things. Like, does everyday people have a legacy? Does everyone have their own legacy? Like, people may be listening and say, well, that's great, but do I need a legacy? Like, what do I do with all my stuff?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the family with the 6,000 photos that ended up at the YIVO Research Center, they're not important. I hope they're not watching this. But I mean, they're
not well known. Let's say you put it that way.
Part of it is the long stretch of historical information. Part of it is that they're an immigrant group. And part of it is the excellent condition that everything was in. So that plays a part in it. And the man whose grandfather's things went to Bethel Park, I think you'd be afraid of him if you saw him on the street. He was kind of a rough guy.
Yeah.
I think everybody has the potential to save what they have.
So that brings up another question that I have specifically that I have, and people watching may have. What do we do with all these things? I lost my mother last year, and she was the last one in her family. So I have books and books of pictures. I have no idea who these people are. It's her parents and her parents' brothers and sisters who I've never met. You know, they're from Czechoslovakia. Like, what do people do with like all these things?
You have options. So unfortunately, a lot of people, excuse me, do throw them away, which
Right? Because what do you do with them? I don't know
very,
who they
very
are.
sad. Right. Well, if you have any other family members that are interested or your age or older than you, it is a really fun project to go through them together and name them or tell a story or whatever. Um, Especially if you say they're back in Czechoslovakia, it seems hard for me to think about throwing away
I
someone's
know.
heritage, right?
Right.
So there may be Czechoslovakia groups in the area or in the country that have collections. I'd be happy to Google around a little and figure out what could be done.
Right. And I think this is probably an issue that people, again, our age have.
Yeah,
Because
definitely,
their
definitely.
parents are gone. They have because at the time we had pictures for everything. Like we didn't have cell phones that captured pictures. We didn't have a cloud. We had photo albums and we had
Right,
pictures and pictures and pictures. Like so, like what do you do with all these? Now you talked about digitalizing pictures.
right.
Do people do
So,
that? Is
ooh,
that what they do?
I have so much to say. So, photo albums are great because they tell a story like a
Hmm.
book, right? So,
Yeah.
when people take them apart, they lose the narrative. Like, if you have a collection that you've inherited from someone, don't reorganize it
Hmm.
because how they organized it tells you something about them.
Hmm,
Some
that's
small
true.
thing. Maybe a businessman kept everything in strict chronological order. My grandmother had everything divvied up between her 3 or 4 kids,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of tells you about how that what their priorities are and whatever. So that's a relief. You don't have to reorganize any of grandma's stuff.
Okay.
I also want to say if you're cleaning out somebody's house, unless they're very, very old, most archives, they don't want your medical information. They don't want your financial information.
No.
They don't
No.
want your checkbooks. They don't want your bill stubs. They don't want, so that's usually a couple boxes of stuff that can just be thrown away. Even I say you can throw it away.
You throw something away, Angela.
I have a hard time, but I'm that person too. And I also am very sentimental. So I'm the one that, somebody passes and I show up at the end of the yard sale taking every bent candle and chipped teacup. I've stopped, but I still have a house full. So anyway, cleaning out mom's house. They don't want your medical. They don't want your financial. If anybody has a collection of frogs or owls or hummels or spoons or whatever, keep those together if you can. Give them to a family member. We can find there are all kinds of
Yeah.
pop culture collections that want postcards and old calendars and
True.
I mean, you can't spend your whole life placing every item. I do understand that.
Right, right.
But so those are some big things I think that will help just get a little bit of okay, we start with just throwing away these two things and figuring out my grandmother had a doll collection. I saved all that for my daughter and she's quite a tomboy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna photograph it and keep the photos
Hmm.
and give the stuffed animals and dolls to I mean mostly she made them.
Right.
So give them away. And photographing precious items is a great way to save the memory of them without having to keep every single thing, even the collection thing, if they've got
Right.
spoons or thimbles or whatever. So then that also keeps it forever and it alleviates the guilt, even if you end up taking it to Goodwill. You're like, well, but I remember her and the importance of it.
Okay. Great, great tips. Great tips. So, what's next, Angela?
Ooh, I'm working on a book,
Oh,
actually. One
nice.
of the things that's really blocked me in this line of work that I never expected is all the women that don't want to do it. And here's why. I've been to some big women's expos and they're like, oh, this is so exciting. I love what you're talking about. This is so cool. And I'll say, let's talk about it for
Yeah.
you. And they'll say, oh, not me. I haven't done anything.
Right,
I'm
right.
not important.
Yeah.
And that's part of the mythology of a legacy, right? It's not just presidents in the top 2% and that sort of thing. we all are leaving a legacy,
Mhm.
and it will help our descendants remember us, or it will help historians remember this moment if we save it.
So how do we get started? So I'm listening to someone's watching this show and we think, okay, I'm going to start my legacy.
Right.
Besides calling you,
Well, you can call me.
everybody should call you. Everybody should call you. But if they want to start on their own, like, what do they do? Like, what's like the first, like, one or two things that you should do to get this legacy together, or even to figure out if you have a legacy? Something.
You have a legacy. Whether it's a big one that you need to build a library for, or a little file folder that will go in the historical society, you have a legacy. We all do. Here are the 4 steps. Set your
Okay.
intention. Set your intention to do it. Decide. Find a place. So I have a folder on my desktop and I have a corner on my bureau for things that I find. And, I have albums of my grandmother's that I'm not taking apart. And so there are things that I don't have to collect, but I have 2 places that I collect a digital. I'm not saying they mirror each other. I'm saying,
Right.
I got the report card, thrown it in the digital file, but I found a poster or something. So that's it. Set the intention, find the place, start saving. Okay, so you've decided to do it. You know how you're going to do it. Now start sliding things in there in the digital folder or piling them up on your bureau. And then the 4th thing, I do recommend getting my freebie. So
Okay.
it's on my website and it tells you what to save and what not to save.
Okay.
And sometimes what not to save is the hardest, or the most important information, right? So anything that you can't store, anything wet or needing extra special care, like I'm not equipped to save oil paintings, for example.
Mhm.
I just don't have the knowledge about it or the
Right.
HVAC or whatever. So that should give you a lot to start with. Set your intention, find your spot, start collecting. Not sure what to collect, get my list. And then, yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
I'm thrilled to be having this interview with you
Oh,
because
you too.
I have experience in that area with the Bethel Park Historical Society. And I know that you've reached so many wonderful people doing wonderful things. And I think all your guests should build their legacies.
What a wonderful way. Angela, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm delighted.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Empowering You. I want to thank my guest, Angela L. Todd. She gave incredible stories about she helped these people develop their legacy and how important it is that we all have a legacy. She gave some suggestions on how you can get started, and also there's a free gift for you to check out. I hope her stories and what she does inspires and empowers you to live your best life and have your own legacy. Thank you for watching and see you next time.